Russia's strategy in its war with Ukraine has evolved since the conflict began in February 2022. Initially, Russia aimed for a quick victory, hoping to capture Kyiv and install a pro-Russian government. However, due to unexpected Ukrainian resistance and logistical issues, Russia shifted to a more protracted and multifaceted approach. Here are some key elements of its evolving strategy. 1. Territorial control and consolidation. Focus on eastern and southern Ukraine. After failing to capture Kyiv, Russia concentrated its efforts on controlling areas in eastern Ukraine, particularly the Donbas region, Donetsk and Luhansk, and key southern cities. These regions are strategically important due to their proximity to Russia, existing separatist movements, and the presence of Russian-speaking populations. Establishing a land corridor to Crimea by seizing control over southern regions such as Mariupol and Melitopol, Russia created a land bridge connecting mainland Russia to Crimea, which it annexed in 2014. 2. Attrition warfare. Long-range bombardments. Russia has frequently targeted Ukrainian infrastructure, such as power plants, water supply, and transportation networks, to weaken Ukraine's economy and morale. Artillery and missile strikes. Both sides have engaged in heavy artillery battles, with Russia deploying extensive firepower to overwhelm Ukrainian positions, especially in the eastern and southern fronts. 3. Energy warfare and economic pressure. Weaponization of energy. Russia reduced natural gas supplies to Europe, hoping to leverage Europe's reliance on Russian energy to weaken support for Ukraine. Although Europe has diversified energy sources, this tactic aimed to create economic pressure, especially during colder months. Sanctions evasion and economic adaptation. Russia has worked to mitigate the impact of Western sanctions by strengthening ties with non-Western allies, particularly China, India, and Middle Eastern countries, to secure alternative trade and energy markets. 4. Information warfare and psychological operations. Propaganda and disinformation. Russian state media and affiliated channels have spread narratives painting NATO as the aggressor and claiming that the Ukrainian government is influenced by Nazism. Russia aims to shape both domestic and international perception. Cyber attacks. Russian-aligned cyber groups have conducted cyber attacks on Ukrainian government websites, critical infrastructure, and Western institutions in attempts to destabilize Ukrainian society and disrupt support from Western allies. 5. Partial mobilization and use of mercenaries. Wagner Group and other paramilitaries. Russia has relied on private military contractors, particularly the Wagner Group, to support ground operations. This strategy allowed Russia to increase its combat power without an official draft, though Wagner's role has since diminished. Partial mobilization. In September 2022, Russia initiated a partial mobilization of approximately 300,000 reservists to supplement its forces. This has been critical for sustaining prolonged engagements on multiple fronts. 6. Diplomatic maneuvering. Undermining Western unity. Russia has sought to exploit divisions within the West by cultivating relationships with countries sympathetic to its stance, as well as by leveraging diplomatic ties with countries in Africa, Latin America, and Asia to gain political support. Seeking favorable ceasefires. Although peace talks have largely stalled, Russia occasionally suggests ceasefires or peace proposals, usually as an attempt to consolidate gains or slow down Ukrainian advances. 7. Defensive measures against Ukrainian counteroffensives. Building extensive fortifications to counter Ukrainian advances, especially in retaken areas. Russia has invested in elaborate defensive structures in occupied territories, including trenches, tank traps, and minefields. Deployment of anti-air systems. Russia has installed sophisticated air defense systems in strategic locations, including Crimea, to counter Ukraine's use of drones and long-range missile strikes on Russian-occupied territories and even within Russia. Current goals and long-term strategy. Political destabilization. Russia aims to weaken Ukraine's governance, economy, and public morale, hoping to make the cost of resistance unbearable. Influence and control over Ukraine's future. Ultimately, Russia seeks to maintain significant influence over Ukraine's political trajectory, aiming to prevent it from joining NATO or becoming closely aligned with the West. Russia's strategy continues to evolve in response to developments on the battlefield, international pressure, and Ukraine's own tactics, which have increasingly incorporated advanced Western weaponry and tactical innovations. The conflict remains dynamic, with neither side achieving decisive victory.